What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video. I am Raymond. I am an aspiring documentary filmmaker in my beginning stages, and today I'm going to be talking about why I love documentary filmmaking. I'm going to talk about some of my past experiences and what I've learned. And also, I'll have some tips for anybody who is trying to get into documentary filmmaking. So definitely stay tuned for that. And hopefully, with all of these things, you'll be able to take away some information that can kind of help you in your journey as a documentary filmmaker. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So for me, documentary filmmaking, it became a passion of mine. I want to say a couple years ago, during the pandemic. During the pandemic, I was around a lot of video production. I think we saw like a huge content boom, and I kind of just started to see like the value of documentary filmmaking and storytelling. And I think like one in particular, like I saw this documentary from Vice TV. They create like tons of short docs, a lot of like interesting content. And they created this one short documentary. It was on this guy who was in the process of joining the Crips in Brooklyn. And they kind of showed the process and the journey of him from the initiation to how he got jumped in and all of these things, and it kind of gives you insight into the emotional and that physical journey that people who join gangs go through. And it was a very for a 10-15 minute doc, it was just like, wow, like what makes somebody do something like that, you know what I mean? And for me personally, like I grew up in Brooklyn, so I kind of had some type of connection to it. I've never wanted to join a gang, but I've always been curious, like what makes a person do that? What makes them, go down that journey? What is it really like? I've always heard that people get jumped into a gang, but I've never actually seen it. So with this doc, I was able to actually see and hear the perspective of this man, you know what I mean? And I was curious. I've had friends that have joined gangs and just not really clear on like what makes you go that route. You know what I mean? Like we came from the same like areas, same opportunities, private school. What makes you go that route? But people who join gangs, there's a lot of things that maybe I wouldn't be exposed to and understand. Maybe they're looking for protection. Maybe they didn't have role models in their life that they can trust, and they found some type of security with people who are in gangs, and that is kind of caused them to want to take that route. Maybe there's something outside of what we see with gangs that maybe they value and I'm not aware. So I think this was a cool doc to kind of like understand that. I still wouldn't join a gang, obviously, but I think that's the power of documentaries. Sometimes it gives you that perspective, that real authentic side of things that you wouldn't otherwise know. So I created two documentaries during the pandemic. So I think a couple years ago, I created one. It was on a poet, a friend that I went to high school with. Middle school with, and another was on a fashion designer, somebody who I worked with, and I had seen his work over the years, just inspired by some of the things that he's done. And I knew that, these two individuals would be great to kind of create films on. And so, I set out, with a friend of mine's who's a videographer, to go ahead and direct these documentary films. And I enjoyed the process. It was great. It was great to, learn more about these individuals, their stories, go through the process of, the pre-production and, the editing process, being there for all of these things, and shooting the interviews, catching those real authentic moments. I enjoyed all of it. Some of my probably most fun experiences in my life, if I had to rank them. So these are two films that I had fun in I learned a lot. I learned a lot along the way. For my favorite part of doing these films was, like I said, definitely capturing that raw emotion. You know what I mean? Like with the designer, there was so many moments that kind of just came about naturally.
Got me into like making my own clothes, and when I started seeing my progress, that's when I started really taking it serious. But bro, I'm not gonna lie, like I live for moments like this, bro. Like I have so much on my plate, and I never fall, bro. It don't make me feel like too crazy because I love it.
Right.
But I've been mentally preparing for this for a long time, so it's not like I'm shocked, right? And I always know like obstacles is coming.
Also, something I forgot to include in the video, if you would like to watch those documentaries that I created early on, I'll make sure to put those in the description, so check those out. Person is comfortable. I think that's one of my favorite parts. Like when the subject is so comfortable that they start revealing information, you can kind of tell, you can feel that comfortable feeling. Maybe in the beginning they were kind of uneasy, maybe they're not as comfortable around you, so you're not sure how it's going to go. You're not sure if they're going to be their authentic selves when the camera comes out, because with the camera on, people aren't used to having a camera on them, so you never know how they're going to react. And when you finally get to that point where you're like, this person is okay, it's like they don't even realize that they're in front of a camera. Like that feeling is amazing, and the stuff that comes out of it is also amazing. So definitely one of my top parts about creating documentary filmmaking is the interviews. When you get your person to just be comfortable and relaxed. And then the second part of that is just being on set. You know what I mean? The fact that everybody's working together. You know what I mean? You have your person, your DP, who's handling the camera side of things. You have all the different people in the room. For my first two docs, we didn't have a huge team, but all the people that he brought on to kind of make his vision come to light. So when we shot the documentary, he was actually having a photo shoot. So he had photographers, he had stylists there, he had models, and just the opportunity to kind of meet these people. Like, I'm not a fashion designer, so I would probably never be in the presence of a stylist. I'll probably never be in the presence of models and things like that. So that was cool. That was cool to kind of be in the presence of some of these people, creative people. They're interested in you because you're creating a film, and it's just an opportunity to kind of build connections. So it's fun. It's super fun. That's definitely another favorite part of mine. So I enjoyed creating those two films, and I learned a lot. The films that I've created in the past, they were great, and like I said, I learned a lot, and there is a lot that I wish I could improve upon. So for one, I'll focus specifically on the documentary about the fashion designer, whose name is Justin. For one, if I could go back, I would probably prioritize the pre-production side of things. I think that, when I created the film, being very ambitious, being very passionate about, hey man, I want to get out there and capture some raw emotion and create a short documentary, and kind of like evoke some of the things that I felt when I watched this documentary. I set out to do that, but what I lacked is probably the foundation, the real understanding of how to create a documentary, a short documentary, really create a story. I didn't have those type of foundations in my tool belt, and as a result, that kind of made the editing a lot harder. I didn't go in knowing like a clear idea of the story that I was trying to tell. Instead, I knew that I had a great person that this film was on, that was passionate. He was doing a photo shoot, so I could use that for B-roll with the interview. And, this is going to be amazing. I got great questions. I know what questions I want to ask. I've been wanting to ask these for years. But, what I didn't have an understanding of is like, okay, what is the story that you're trying to tell in the end? You know what I mean? Because that's what's going to keep people engaged for the film was 32 minutes. If you want to create a 32-minute film in 2022 and beyond, it has to be engaging. And, this is something that I didn't understand. So I didn't even know at the time, like when I was struggling to edit at the end, when we were struggling to edit, like that, the reason why was because we didn't have a story, essentially. I didn't even know that. It wasn't until now, and I'll share more about how I learned these different, essentials and foundations of documentary filmmaking later in the video. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I just didn't have a clear understanding. I just was passionate. I was green, and if I could go back, I would have definitely maybe done some research on how to frame a story. And I'd understand the questions that I need to ask to add to that story. I understand the themes that I wanted to explore. I would, have a shot list so I can get the shots that I want, get the B-roll that I want, all of these different things. And sometimes that comes from experience. That comes from experience. So, if I could go back, we had so many great moments that we caught that would have, added to a story. So, for example, the story would have been, following the journey of a NYC designer who is creating a fashion collection, who is on a journey to sell out his collection and, maybe get his product in the hands of like a celebrity or something like that. And in the process of the film, showing the emotional journey, showing the physical journey, and all the hurdles that kind of go into this, and the audience would be able to see whether or not he accomplishes this goal. And that would have made for a more engaging film, rather than just a bunch of information on his journey, which is amazing. But that's more so amazing for people who know the person, maybe who's interested in this person. But in order for people to connect on a broader level, people are connected to stories. They're connected to emotional journeys, and something that they can watch. If they don't understand what that is, then they're gonna lose interest fast. So that's on me as a director. I had a great person who's done so much and was giving so much to the film, but the lack of understanding of kind of how to craft a engaging documentary, it wasn't there, in my opinion. So that's something that I learned, for sure. Prioritize pre-production. Know all of those things before you shoot. And of course, you can't plan for everything, right? You can't plan the authentic side of things. There's gonna, you might go in thinking like, okay, let's prove this kind of theme, maybe how you balance art with your health or something like that. And it might take a twist, but at least you go in knowing, okay, this is the direction we want to go in. We're going to try to, capture these moments and stuff like that, and ask these questions that align with our story. And that will, help you a lot, rather than going in blind and just hoping that you have a story. Essentially, if you don't do that, you can just create like, I don't know, like just an informational, right? A biography. And that's not what documentary filmmaking. The documentary films in themselves, they're stories. They're stories about individuals. And what we kind of created was more of a topic based story. You know what I mean? Like, you have a designer and we're going to just, talk about his accomplishments. But there's a deeper story, that we learned from the interview that we could have, dissected and really explored. So I think that was the biggest lesson, pre-production. And then also just quality. I think quality, taking your time, maybe taking my time to create something a bit better. But again, I didn't understand what I didn't understand at the time. So had I known, maybe saying like, all right, let's go back to the drawing board and let's create something a bit more, a bit better, so that it can accomplish the goal that we're trying to accomplish. So one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to release it at the same time as his collection. So essentially, the short documentary would kind of be like a way to, get to know him as a person and see that real authentic side. And I think it did accomplish that, but we could have created a better film that, would have probably had the impact, a better impact than what it had, So maybe saying, hey, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's make sure we have a story here that focuses on the things that we want to focus on and that would connect with people. And I think that would have been great. So, pre-production and, just prioritizing quality. And then there's just a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? Like making sure there's audio, making sure color grade. Like, there's so many small details, but like I think those two stood out the most for me. And aside from that, I think that like one of the greatest tools or greatest teachers are kind of just getting out there and actually hitting that record button. You know, I had an itch to scratch. I had something that was pulling me to actually do this, and had I not done it, I probably wouldn't have learned a lot of the mistakes that I made. I think for anybody out there, if you're interested in creating documentary films, I think you should go out there and record. You should actually go out there and try to create the documentaries that you have in your head. Reach out to that person you think would make a great character, and just see what happens sometimes. But in addition to that, definitely try to do some research. One thing I'll recommend is to check out Mark Bones' YouTube channel. His content focuses heavily on documentary filmmaking, and I think it was a great resource to me now. So now that I am getting back into documentary filmmaking, I've watched a lot of his content. I have actually purchased his course, which I'll talk about in a second. And I think that it's been amazing, to kind of like understand the foundations. And, I really wish I would have had a lot of this knowledge when I first set out to create these documentary films. I think that it would have made for some great work that I could create. So, I definitely recommend checking out his YouTube. If you have the funds, definitely I'd say invest in like the course. If you're beginning, there's a foundations course, so you can learn the foundations of documentary filmmaking. Sorry, I'm like thirsty. But yeah, I took that course and it's great. You have access to it for pretty much ever. I constantly go back. I go back to that video about how to create a story. Like that video is amazing. Talks about creating a story and not just a topic. You know what I mean? The topic is fashion design, but a story is a person who, where you have a character or characters who has a goal, and then the film is documenting the process and the journey, whether it's physical, emotional. You have to have physical and emotion, but that physical and emotional journey of, going towards that goal and trying to accomplish that goal, and seeing if they actually accomplish it, whether they do or whether they don't, because sometimes you don't accomplish the goal. So really trying to uh, make sure that's understood in my brain. Like, I think that's probably my favorite module. And there's a lot of other content within the course. So if you have the funds, definitely check it out. But nonetheless, check out the YouTube channel, because there's a bunch of free content that will help you as you begin this journey. So for me, how I'm building my filmmaking journey from scratch. This year, I plan to create a short documentary, at least 1 to 2 short documentaries this year. And my hopes is to create short documentaries that really tell good stories, that really show the journey and prove a theme or a core question that I'm trying to hit home, for whatever, character or whatever individual that the film is on. I definitely want to, just really understand the art of storytelling with my documentary film. So I'm excited for that. I actually am working on a documentary film with a friend of mine, on a painter from Brooklyn. So I'm super excited for that, and I am just ready to really put out a quality piece of work, and use some of the things that I've mentioned, which are that pre-production and just prioritizing quality. So if this takes time, I'm willing to kind of like take those steps. So I'm excited. I'm definitely gonna at some point post it on the channel, so when that comes out, you'll definitely be able to see it. And then also I'll share all the lessons that I learned along the way, because I think there's always lessons to take away, and I'll be sure to share it with you guys. So if I don't tell you anything, definitely go out there, go practice, go shoot something. Be sure to let me know in the comments some things that you're working on. And, I just wish you guys the best. I'm on this journey as a beginner. If you're on this journey and maybe you're past the beginner stage, I would love to connect. I'd love to, kind of learn or hear any tips that you have for me. So, thank you guys for tuning in. If you made it this far, please subscribe, please like, and I'll see you on the next video.